As the train started moving, Mike looked out the window. The scenery was beautiful. He saw green fields, tall mountains, and flowing rivers. Everything seemed peaceful, but little did he know, this trip would be far from ordinary. Mike was a quiet man who loved to travel. He decided to take a train trip across the country. He boarded the train with only a backpack and a ticket. The train was spacious, with many cars and seats. Mike got a window seat and settled in for the long journey. After a few hours, Mike noticed something strange. The train was almost empty. He had not seen any other passengers since he boarded. The only people he saw were the conductor and a few staff members. Mike felt a bit uneasy, but decided not to worry. He pulled out a book and started to read. Suddenly, the train jolted. Mike looked up from his book. The lights flickered, and the train slowed down. It was strange, because they were in the middle of nowhere. Mike stood up and walked to the conductor's car.
"Excuse me,"
Mike said to the conductor.
"why did the train stop?"
The conductor, a tall man with a serious face, looked at Mike.
"We had to make an emergency stop,"
he said.
"There's a problem on the tracks."
Mike nodded and returned to his seat. He looked out the window again and saw nothing but darkness. The sun had set, and the only light came from the train's dim lamps. Mike tried to go back to his book, but he couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. Minutes passed, and then an hour. The train didn't move. Mike decided to explore the train. He walked through the empty cars, feeling uneasy with each step. Finally, he reached the dining car. It was empty too, but there was a plate of food on one of the tables. It looked fresh, as if someone had just been there. Feeling uncomfortable, he wanted to go back to his seat. When he turned to leave, he heard a faint noise coming from the kitchen. He walked towards the kitchen door and pushed it open. Inside, he saw a man sitting on the floor. The man looked up at Mike with wide, frightened eyes.
"Are you okay?"
Mike asked, stepping closer. The man shook his head.
"You have to get off this train. It's not safe."
Mike's heart raced.
"What do you mean?"
He asked.
"There's something on this train. Something dangerous. It's been following us since we left the station,"
said the man. Mike wanted to ask more, but the man stood up and ran past him, disappearing into the darkness of the train. Mike felt his fear grow. He had to find out what was happening. He walked back to his seat, but before he could sit down, the train started moving again. Mike looked out the window. They were no longer in the countryside. The train was now going through a dark forest. The trees looked like shadows, and the moonlight barely pierced through the thick branches. Mike sat down and tried to calm himself. He took deep breaths and told himself that everything would be okay. But deep down, he knew something was very wrong. As the train moved deeper into the forest, Mike noticed the lights flickering again. He heard strange echoes, like whispers and laughter. But every time he looked around, he saw nothing. Then the noises got closer to him. He jumped up and looked around. Suddenly, a passenger appeared at the front of the car. It was a man wearing a hat, sitting with his back turned to Mike. Where did he come from? Mike thought. Then the man slowly turned his head toward Mike, and laughter reverberated throughout the car. Mike quickly grabbed his bag and stumbled out the door. Mike ran through empty train cars that seemed to stretch on forever and ever. He felt like he was the only person left in the world. Suddenly, the train came to a screeching halt. Mike fell to the floor and hit his head on a handrail. He stood up with one hand on his head while picking up his bag with the other hand. He knew he had to get off the train. He walked to the nearest door and pulled the handle open. The cold night air hit his face, and he saw that they were in the middle of the forest. Mike jumped down from the train and started walking. The forest was dark and silent. He could hear his own footsteps crunching on the leaves. He looked back and saw the train standing still, its lights flickering like fireflies. Mike walked for what felt like hours. He had no idea where he was going, but he knew he had to get far away from the train. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him. He turned around and saw a figure in the shadows. It was the man from the dining car.
Wait, what's going on?
Mike called out. The man stepped forward.
You need to keep walking.
He said, pointing into a distance.
There. That small cabin up on the hill. You'll be safe there. In the morning, you can find your way back to the city.
Mike thanked the man and headed up the hill. He walked through the dark forest, guided only by the faint moonlight. After a while, Mike saw the cabin in the distance. It looked old and abandoned. Inside, the cabin was warm and cozy, and Mike felt safe for the first time since he boarded the train. He laid down on a worn-out bed and tried to relax, but his mind was still racing with questions. What was that dangerous thing on the train? And who was the man who helped him? Mike knew he might never get the answers. But for now, he was just glad to be safe. He closed his eyes and soon fell into a deep sleep, dreaming of the mysterious passenger in the car and hearing his wicked laughter all through the night. Question 1. Why was Mike taking the train? A. He was traveling home. B. He was on a business trip. C. He was taking a trip across the country. Question 2. What was strange about the train? A. The train was almost empty. B. The train did not have a conductor. C. There was no food on the train. Question 3. What kind of noise did Mike hear on the train? A. Screaming. B. Cries. C. Whispers. Question 4. Where did Mike sleep that night? A. On the train. B. In the cabin. C. In the forest. Question 5. What did the man on the floor tell Mike to do? A. Get off the train. B. Eat the plate of food. C. Be very careful.